Rex, I am so pleased to meet you face to face, in a manner of speaking. As you can see, I have gone to great lengths to conceal my identity. I am speaking to you from an undisclosed location from within the four walls of a room you may recognize. I am, in fact, the bag from PT.
I love it. I love it. How much work went into setting that up?
I am not at liberty to divulge that information.
All right. I'll start by saying my name and what I do. My name is Rex Sterling. And I am a streamer on YouTube and a content creator on YouTube, primarily regarding video game content and things like that. I'm a streamer first and a video content creator second.
Have you ever played Hideo Kojima games?
Have I ever played Hideo Kojima's games? I have. My first introduction to Kojima was Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1. I wasn't even aware that, how large the franchise was or its history. When I was introduced to that game, I was still young, didn't know much about it. I think my parents bought it for me or something. And I fell in love with it, fell in love with that franchise. And then, of course, because he has such a unique vision and his name kind of became synonymous with the way that he made his games, I became familiar with, the man behind the game over the iterations and over the sequels in the franchise.
Do you have favorite?
Oh, so do I have a favorite Kojima game? So, I got, I will say now, that I have a lot of love for the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise, but I think the one that resonated with me the most was Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. I just think that of all the ones that I've played, I still have not completed Metal Gear Solid 5, which I'm not proud of, but I'm planning to do it on stream. I wanted to save that one for stream. Around the time that I got a hold of that game, I was just kind of starting streaming. I got there really late because I used to play games religiously, and then I was a professional wrestler for many years, and I didn't play video games at all. So I missed about like 8, 9 years, 10 years maybe of gaming, pretty much the entire like PlayStation 3 era. I missed just about all of that in early PlayStation 4. So I still haven't completed Metal Gear Solid 5, but for me, Metal Gear Solid 3, it just resonated with me the most. I think it hit the hardest at the end. But they're all good. It almost feels unfair to compare them because they all have their own individual ways of standing out. And I love all the games, but 3 just to me, I just felt like it just came together in a way that spoke to me the most out of all of the ones that I've played so far.
What is abandoned to you, and how were you involved?
So what is abandoned to me, and how did I become involved with it? So when I first heard about Abandoned, I didn't really think much of it because, at first nobody really did. I didn't know anything about the studio. I didn't know anything about the game or the project. We still don't know what the actual name of the game is, if there is one, which I'm sure we'll get into that later. But as BlueBox kept teasing more and more, like leaning into fan theories that were linking them to Kojima, leaning into franchises like Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill. Like, I love Metal Gear Solid, and I love Hideo Kojima's work. That extends to Death Stranding as well. But I'm also equally a huge fan of Silent Hill as a franchise. So, and I think so much of the gaming community was excited for Konami to bring back Silent Hill in a way that involved Kojima, because the franchise, I haven't played very many of the later games. I know that they mostly received a mixed reception, but to see that franchise return to its glory and Kojima being involved, it was just something so many of us were excited about. And then, of course, like everything about this situation, it contained so many compelling and provocative ingredients. The way Kojima left Konami, the cancellation of PT, Silent Hills being this project that was going to revive like a legendary horror franchise. There was just everything just came together so perfectly. it was almost too good to be true, right? I mean, it was so amazing, the thought that, what if what if this is another stunt by Hideo Kojima, because he's done things like this before, and we know he wants to make a horror game, and we know he was going to revive Silent Hill, and now this is happening, and it doesn't make any sense if this isn't connected to Kojima for these people to lean so heavily into the rumors. Why would you set yourself up for failure like that? And it was just like, it just felt like the stars were aligning. And as a fan of Kojima, as a fan of his previous works, as a fan of Silent Hill, and as somebody who had wanted to see Silent Hill come back, like, return to form, um, it just, I mean, like, the hype just kept building and building and building and building, and Blue Box leaning into it more and more and more as they're denying it at the same time. It just created this narrative and this story. It was like a puzzle that we were all trying to put together, and it became like something that was greater almost than the sum of its parts. Um, it was just, I mean, it felt like the whole world was watching when that happened, and which makes the way that it turned out even more, tragic in a way. Very anticlimactic, but anyway, yeah, I know this is a long, like, I'm ranting a little bit, but yeah, it just had all these ingredients that I was incredibly interested in, and to see it come together and to be able to cover it live, being a new streamer, and loving this content and wanting to succeed in something to do with this. It just all came together perfectly for me, and I had to be there for it.
Fairly new to the Silent Hill series, what intrigues you most about it?
What intrigues me the most about the Silent Hill series? Um, so again, I played the first Silent Hill around probably the same time that I played the first Metal Gear Solid. So I was young. I was probably, I don't know, somewhere between 14 and 16 years old, maybe 14-ish, 14, 15. But I played Silent Hill, and I think something about the way they chose to tell their story, something about the atmosphere of the game, it was incredibly haunting. And I think this is true for most people. I think that people are compelled by an intriguing mystery. And Silent Hill, it put forth it give me a second to think about how I want to frame this. I'm sorry. Um Silent Hill had a way of luring the player with a mystery that you would want to solve. What's going on in this world? Why is it the way that it is? It was genuinely creepy. I'm sure that my age played into it a little bit, but at the time when Silent Hill was released, a lot of what they were doing, especially on limited hardware, it was different than any other horror game that I had played. And I think that what I found most compelling about it was how intricate the lore behind Silent Hill was. Once I completed the game and felt like I had a pretty good understanding of it, some games are so good that once you're done playing them, you want to learn more about the game. And that's how I felt about Silent Hill. So then I go on the internet, I start studying the the lore behind the game, learning more about the characters, learning more about their backstories, and it was just all so good and so well put together. And the totality of the story, once I started putting all of the lore together and studying it, it was just haunting, because I think that in a lot of ways there were elements of the lore of Silent Hill that I could see genuinely happening. If not in present day, I'm sure at some point something like that, similar to that, has happened. There was something about it that came across like authentically plausible, and just haunting, because that somewhere out there's got to be a community of people that genuinely could think that way or fall into an atmosphere like that. And there's been examples of it before. So I just felt like it was haunting. I felt like it was a really well told story. And I also felt like, even though the gameplay of it hasn't held up over time, obviously, with as much as we've moved forward with technology, that story of Harry searching for his daughter and her being one half of a soul or the extension of another soul, or even to this day there's still people that kind of argue over like how what it really is and what it really means and stuff like that. But it was just compelling and different from anything else. I've never encountered another story that was as unique as Silent Hill in a lot of ways. Most stories are not. It didn't really feel like Silent Hill was biting off of other art. It felt like it was its own unique thing.
How do you first hear about the conspiracy?
How did I first hear about the conspiracy of Abandoned? I gotta stop saying so much, you know? uh so it was pretty much through YouTubers that I was subscribed to. Obviously before I became a streamer and before I started making content on YouTube, I was subscribed to video game content on YouTube. I watched a lot of people that made videos on content that I liked, that talked about games that I liked. I owned a PlayStation. I did not own an Xbox console, and I don't really care for like the console wars because I enjoy video games as a whole, no matter what device they're played on. But I didn't have a Switch. I didn't have an Xbox. I only had a PlayStation. So a lot of the content that I watched revolved around things going on with Sony. So when people started putting together the possibility of Abandoned having something to do with Kojima, content creators, of course, started putting out videos on it because it was compelling content. It was getting views. It was, a growing story. It had legs to it. It didn't fizzle out after a week or even a month. And so there was a lot of videos and a lot of content being put out on social media and on platforms like YouTube talking about this. And I was one of those viewers that was watching it. And, like I've said, it contained, so many different ingredients that I was a huge fan of: Kojima, Metal Gear, Silent Hill, this whole ARG thing that might be happening. And I was just incredibly excited about it. So that was how, like, the people, like, kind of like connecting the dots, other content creators covering it, and then me seeing the videos, made me want to get involved because as you've seen, I have so much that I can say about these subjects. So I wanted to say something about it. I wanted to make some videos. I wanted to talk about it. So I started kind of trying to talk about it a little bit on my own channel as well, especially, the fact that my channel was, so new. It still is. But my channel was about a year old. I had been streaming for less than a year. And this was a subject that I felt like a decent amount of knowledge and experience about and with. So I felt comfortable talking about it and getting involved. So I started to.
Who is Hazen Cartman?
Who is Hassan Karaman? So as far as Hassan, I wasn't familiar with him at all prior to, this whole fiasco. Once I, became aware of him and became aware, at first I just became aware of him as, somebody that could possibly be, a plant, somebody that could be planted, and easy, almost like the perfect person to use as a front for whatever was happening behind the scenes. And then, I became aware of his studio's past titles, past games that they had worked on, some past controversies there, which again, in a lot of ways, I feel like, yeah, all of that makes him perfect for, like, if this is an ARG, if this is something that they're trying to, fool people with, if they need somebody to stand in the place of Kojima right now, this is the perfect person for it because he's got a history in games. It's controversial. And so because of who he is and because of the past controversies with the studio, you're going to have people that immediately point out like that, this has got to be Kojima. But then you're also going to have people that say, this guy has a history of lying. You can't trust. So there's that element of doubt, where like nobody would know for sure because this guy has a history of doing things that seem very scummy, very scammy, you know? So why would Sony, want to be associated, give him this app on their hardware and even want to be associated with somebody that's pulling some bullshit like this? So with Hassan Karaman, I did not know who he was prior to I didn't know who Hassan Karaman was prior to the abandoned like fiasco. Like prior to this whole situation, I had no experience with him. I didn't know anything about Blue Box. Um, the same way that I became aware of Kojima's possible involvement with Abandoned, the same way that I became aware of this project at all, it was the same way that I was exposed to Hassan, which is content creators putting out videos on him. So I kind of learned about Hassan in the same way and in the same order that a lot of people did on like Twitter and things like that, which is I learned that he was apparently the head of this project. We weren't hearing about any other employees. I didn't hear about any associates. I haven't heard about a level designer. I haven't heard about an art designer. I haven't heard about a narrative designer. I haven't heard about any, techs working on the game that were speaking on Twitter. To this day, I've heard people say like, yeah, there's other people on the project and they've tweeted about it too. But when I have asked for, any kind of like evidence of this, and when I have looked for it, I have not been able to find it. Maybe I didn't look well enough. But I just became aware that this guy seems to be like the face of this project. And then I became aware of like he had a little bit of a history. Apparently, I think somebody had found some old like LinkedIn stuff or something like that where he was looking to do like acting type work. I can't vouch for how legitimate that was, but it seemed legitimate at the time, and I think that links were provided, but it's been a while, so if I'm wrong about that, I apologize. And then on top of it, I became aware, kind of lastly, of his history and his studio's history of making games, and then like having these big projects and getting public funding for them, and then not following through. And in a lot of ways, I think that it made the story more compelling because if Hassan had been, a well-known game developer with a well-known team and they're out here being totally transparent, well then, it makes it hard to continue the conspiracy. But because he was shrouded in as much mystery as the game he was working on, it made it even more compelling, and it had people going back and forth because now you've got a situation where people are like, he's perfect. This has got to be the plant for Kojima. This has got to be the guy that Sony has doing the public stuff, the face of the game, while behind the scenes they're setting up for this big reveal. And then you've got another set of people that are going to come out and say that's ridiculous. There's no way that they would be associated with this guy. Look at his history. Look at other projects he's worked on. Like he has a history of misleading people, and that is perfect because it casts doubt over everything. Nobody knows, and it just made it even more captivating. To this day, I don't know much else about the man. I've never had any interaction with the man. I have messaged him, and offered to speak to him, offered to, collaborate with him on something because now this isn't recently, but this was like around the time that I did the stream, because I felt like, man, it was just like, it would have been such a huge opportunity for me professionally, like obviously, but it was just like the topic was so hot. And, I kind of became I don't want to say synonymous, but I became like, there was like, Kojima and Hassan and Blue Box. And then like, right, kind of right below that, there was like, oh yeah. And that guy that streamed it for 74 hours. So I kind of got like lumped in there, and I was like, this is a great opportunity. We can really do something with this because as soon as that 74-hour stream ended, like so many people, including, you know, insiders in gaming journalism, and you know, people that, you know, worked at other studios, and there were people inside the industry and big players outside of the industry that were watching me. And I was like, we should do something with this, but you know, I never heard back, which, you know, I hate, but I can at the same time understand, because I didn't have any kind of track record either. I would have been, you know, a complete wild card to work with, where you don't know how much you can trust this person. They don't have, you know, I can't look at their history and see whether or not they're good at, you know, keeping their word, keeping their own secrets and stuff like that. So, but man, I felt like it would have been, you know, an amazing opportunity to do something really creative, you know, and that's the part that I really want to stress. Something creative, something interesting, something that ultimately has a happy ending, not something that you're doing just to mess with people, not something that you're doing to grift off people, to get money out of people, to get clicks or engagement, not something that has like any kind of insidious motive behind it. But it could have been something very creative in a world where, honestly, like social media, you don't see that many creative, you know, like you see a lot of content on social media and in gaming that feels watered down, that feels boxed in, right? Elden Ring just released, and that's why people can't stop talking about it. You don't, because it took a formula that was successful, you know, in open world gaming, and then it said, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do it my own way. And, you know, people, there's a segment of our population, I think a very big segment of, you know, consumers and just people in general that are dying for that, because it seems like, you know, content is becoming so homogenized on social media. And when people step outside of that, they have to be very careful how they do it. Uh, so because of that, I think you see creators taking less chances. And there's just so many opportunities for good art, and so many opportunities to do something really different and creative that people are scared to do, because they're either afraid that they won't make money doing it, or they're afraid that they'll get criticized for doing it. And so if there's not the financial incentive, and there's not like the engagement incentive, like the guarantee that this will succeed for me, you know, then I'm going to stick to the formula that everyone else is doing. And that's what you see in content. So I felt like there was an opportunity to do something really different there, and really creative. And man, that just, that gets me excited, but it didn't go anywhere. And, you know, it's a shame, but I'm still holding out hope that at the end of, you know, somehow this isn't a dead issue. Like somehow this is still clinging to life. And maybe there's, you know, maybe there's, at the very least, I think we can all agree there's definitely like a 1% chance that we get a happy ending out of this. And I'm still holding out hope that we get it.
When BlueBox tweeted first letter as last letter L, what was your initial reaction?
So when BlueBox first tweeted that their game begins with an S and ends with an L, I felt like it was so obvious that like it was either a risky like marketing ploy to bring more attention to their project, or whoever made that tweet was just like real, just it was just, how do I put it? Excuse me. It was either like a risky marketing ploy, because you're poking at a fan base that like really, Konami's already like shitting on this fan base. We don't need you poking at them too, right? So it's either that, and they're trying to bring more attention to their project. You know, risky move, could pay off. You know, depends on how good the game you release is. Or somebody just really wasn't thinking when they put that out. You know, but that in and of itself, it didn't like, I didn't hold on to it. I didn't read into it. I didn't really reach for it. You know, I saw it. I was like, that's interesting. And that's how a lot of things about Abandoned were, you know, a lot of people criticized those of us that started connecting the dots, like we were, you know, tinfoil hat wearing, crazy conspiracy theorists and stuff like that, I felt like that criticism was like not only unfair, but completely unwarranted, because it was never like, of course, you've got the extreme, the extremists that like the first time they saw one dot, they were like, oh, well, it's got to be Silent Hill, man. I mean, come on, bro. It's Silent Hill. There's one tweet, that's all I need. There's always going to be people like that. But that wasn't the general population of people that started to believe, that started to connect the dots. It was only after there were repeated dots, repeated coincidences that it got to a point where if this was something that you were passionate about, interested in, and things like that, it just became pretty impossible to ignore. Kojima has a history of it. Why is PlayStation letting, why are they working or having any kind of relationship with Hassan Karaman or BlueBox given their history? Why do they have an app, their own app on the PS5? Why is it like multiple gigabytes for a 6-second trailer? Why are they using the same font from like Metal Gear Solid 2? Why do they have these dimly lit background pictures that look like, what was it, Venom Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5 with the eye patch? He must not be that big of a fan if he has to ask that question. I do. There's so much lore there. I do have to ask that. Like there's Naked Snake, Liquid Snake, Solid Snake. But anyway, so it was just multiple coincidences. It's like, it was like a thing where you poke the bear, right? But it wasn't just like there was one poke and we all just like picked up our pitchforks. Bro, it was like it wasn't even a poke anymore. It felt like we were being jabbed, over and over and over again. It was just too much to ignore. So one tweet, one coincidence, maybe even 2 or 3, okay, I'm curious, but it just kept happening. And then it didn't help that if you look at, Jeff Keighley's tweets around the time, Kojima's tweets around the time, it really seemed like they were feeding into it a little bit. It really seemed like they were feeding into it a little bit and having a little bit of fun with it themselves. So I don't think it's fair to criticize people that got excited, people that read into it, people that started to connect the dots. I feel like that was intended to happen. I felt like that entire situation was manufactured to play out the way that it was playing out. The question is like, why?
What was going through your head at the time?
What was going through my head at the time of the abandoned stream? Well, there were, okay, so it was a stream that started on a Tuesday and ended on a Friday. It went a total of, a lot of people say 74 hours. 74 hours was from when we started to when they actually revealed the 6-second teaser. The total stream was 79 hours. So I went for another 5 hours after that, just to spend some time with the people that I was on that journey with. But my thought process and what I was thinking, obviously it changed as it was happening. At first, I just wanted to go live to cover it because, excuse me, but at first my thought process was I just wanted to go live to cover it because it was something that I was personally interested in, and as somebody who was new to streaming and struggling at the time. Going into Abandoned, I typically had anywhere from like maybe 5 to 15 people watching me stream. I was really struggling. I had been streaming for less than a year, maybe like 9 months, 9 or 10 months, something like that. And yeah, I discovered that one of the best ways to get in touch with the gaming audience and to be a part of the gaming community, the streaming community, and to make people aware that I existed was to try and cover current events in gaming, particularly ones that I was really interested in, because then I would have the most to contribute. So I wanted to cover it. I thought it would be obviously good for my career, good for my channel, and for my discoverability, making people aware that I existed. I was personally interested in it. I had put out a video on my channel leading up to it, where I outlined why I thought this had to be related to Kojima, whether it was going to lead to a Metal Gear Solid reveal or whether it was going to lead to a Silent Hill reveal. I wasn't sure because there was so much misdirection going on, but I did feel like it was related to a huge announcement related to a Konami IP, primarily one of those two, and that Kojima was probably involved. So at first I was just excited to stream it. I was excited to stream it and excited for the reveal, and I wanted to share it with my community. And I was hoping that, through that, people that didn't know that I existed would discover me, and that maybe I could grow my audience, connect with more people, sustain my career. Then when they didn't release the trailer, they didn't do the reveal, there was the holdup with the patch or something like that, and it wasn't working and they weren't releasing it. At that point, I didn't know what to do because Blue Box's story was constantly throughout this whole 3 days, we're working on it. Just give us time. They never gave a timetable. They never said it'll be 3 days. They just said, we're working on it. We're going to try and get it out as soon as possible. So when I went live, I don't know how many people I had watching, maybe 30, 40 people, something like that. Other big content creators were live, channels that had, 50,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers were live covering this. I had 700 when I went live. So, I'm this big right now and I'm covering this and I'm watching it. And then it just, there's a delay. Well, the bigger content creators ended their streams because they're probably thinking, okay, now it's time to make a video about it and get the video out. I think when you're that large, you're that big, you're primarily, on YouTube, you're primarily making videos anyway. It makes the most sense to end your live stream and start putting together your video and get your video out as quick as possible. But I, primarily a streamer who chose to be on this platform, I said, I'm just going to stay live and see what happens. Well, when these other big content creators ended their streams, that crowd of people that was like waiting for something to happen didn't have anywhere to go. So all of a sudden, I went from having like 40 people watching to like 100 people watching to like 200 people watching. And I had that before. I think my biggest stream before Abandoned was the Josh fight. And I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but there was like this little viral thing that happened where all the people named Josh were going to meet together in like, a state here in the United States. They were going to meet together in some field and get together and have a big fight. And the last man standing gets to keep the name. There's too many Joshes. And so it became this like little viral thing that happened. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go live on YouTube to cover it because I just thought it was interesting. And I was like, it's not gaming, but, like, what do I have to lose? Like, nobody knows I'm here anyway. Like, I don't have a 1,000 viewers to lose. I don't, I only stand to gain or maybe waste my time. So I covered that and I ended up having like 1,500 people watching that stream. So I had experience handling a larger crowd. And also because I was a professional wrestler before, I had trained for years, like dealing with a larger crowd. So as people were coming in, even though I was, still a baby streamer in a lot of ways, I still am. I think that with the tools and the knowledge that I had at the time, I was handling it pretty well. It felt like it was going good. I enjoyed having that audience. We were all talking about it. So I'm enjoying this experience more and more. I love talking to people. I'm sure you can tell by how much I'm putting into these answers. So we start kind of like theorizing then, like what do you think's going on? And now we're all talking. We all have someone to talk to and share this moment with. And then it just built and built and built over this couple of days. As it got into like the second and third day, I was just like, I can't believe how long this is taking. I knew that what was happening was good for me because I was regularly holding 5, 6, 7, 800 people at the lowest points of the stream, and at the highest points 3,000 and 4,000 people were in there. So I knew that it was good for me, but in the back of my head, the only thing that I could think of is that they were going to do the reveal and there was a problem with it, and now they're having to work on it. But when it started taking multiple days, I started to think that, okay, maybe I doubt Konami is selling this IP to Sony or Kojima, right? They're not going to sell Silent Hill. They're not going to sell Metal Gear. They're obviously going to own it. So they're going to license it out or something like that, right? So Konami has such a history of, being anti-consumer and being very greedy, and being kind of scummy, honestly, that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking maybe there was an issue with the licensing in the background, and they had to hold this whole thing off as long as they can, so that they can have quick meetings with Konami to settle whatever it is. Maybe Konami wants more money. Maybe they want it to be handled differently. I don't know, but I felt like maybe there was like a corporate snag in the background, and they had to negotiate something to do with the licensing of the IP or something like that. So that's what I thought was going on. And then when the reveal happened, I I was as speechless then as I am now when I think about that they showed the same 6-second clip that they showed on Twitter. That could not have been the plan, right? Like something had to have fallen apart behind the scenes. Why would you gather the eyes? You've got the entire gaming world watching you, just to blow it like that. Like that could not have been the plan, you know? So I obviously I don't know, and I've learned to be very careful about speculating too much on it, but I feel like something fell apart behind the scenes. And the fact that it's still up, the fact that, they're still promising updates, maybe there was a delay, and, it's being worked out behind the scenes, and there'll be a part 2 to this whole event. I don't know. But I it was so anticlimactic. It was almost laughable. It was like almost like I think I started laughing when I realized, like, like it was comical in its ending, not in a good way. Um I still don't know what to think of it, obviously, as somebody who doesn't have access to private information that would smarten me up to what's going on. But man, I just it's hard to believe that this company pulled this off for what? I mean, what did they really gain out of it? It's just, I don't know. It's hard to justify in my head it being anything other than a collaboration that had some kind of like corporate issue that happened in the background that had to be sorted out before they could do whatever the reveal was supposed to be.
The game didn't stop there. Entire subreddits popped up trying to explain the situation, and people from all over the world began cooperating in real time to discover the truth behind the mystery. Tell me more about your experience as it evolved in real time.
So as far as like the whole ARG situation, and the community involvement, and how that affected people, how it affected me, and how it kind of became this game that we were all playing and participating in. um I think that started early, and I think that it because this speculation started a couple of months before the actual reveal, and it just ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. And as far as people getting so involved and becoming so passionate and becoming more than just like something we were watching, but it became this game that we were playing, that we were now participating in. I think that kind of plays into what I talked about earlier with why this whole situation was so provocative in the beginning, because there were so many different elements that were provocative and interesting and captivating on their own. The situation with the Silent Hill franchise, just Konami in general and the way they treat their IPs, Kojima's ousting from Konami, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Karaman Studio, BlueBox, everything, right? So you had all these individual situations and elements that were super interesting, but they came together and like it just created something massive, right? It's the same concept with how people got drawn into solving this mystery. but with the added aspect, the added element of social media, clout, and things like that, things that can be like genuinely toxic. It doesn't have to be, but can be. And I think that that introduced a lot of negativity and negative elements into this equation. And what I mean by that is that I think that some you've got a lot of people in the world, like, I don't know how much, you know, I don't I know mental illness is, a very like touchy subject for some people. So I don't want to go too deep into that, unless you want to talk about it more. But I will say that you have a lot of people that struggle with mental illness in the world, that turn to the internet, that turn to online communities, especially now with the pandemic and everything like that. Um, but even before, you have so many people that turn to online communities. Um, it's almost like, you've got like, uh, poor inner city kids that turn to gangs because they don't have, you've got so many broken families, people, the psychology behind it gets into, people looking for somewhere to belong, looking for a family outside of their home or outside of their current situation. And the internet, I feel like there's, a comparison to be drawn there, where there are people that will go on the internet to look for that family, that community, and things like that, and that notoriety. And I think that what happens is you have a lot of people that got involved, that all of the sudden they attached to this situation in an unhealthy way, and then they didn't get a satisfactory resolution. You could argue they didn't get a resolution at all. I'm sure many of them feel that way, regardless of how we feel. And then on top of that, you've got people that wanted to be the first one to solve it, like the first one to put it together, the first one to just, blow the lid off the whole thing, and all the clout that would come with it, all the notoriety, all the gaming press is going to talk about you. If whoever's able to solve it, that person's going to be a legend. So the allure of the situation, I think it kind of started to shift a little bit away from, a product that is going to be revealed, a product that's being created by corporations and companies. It kind of shifted away from that, and the allure became like, who's going to figure it out? Who's going to find, we're all on this like big scavenger hunt. We're all on this big like Easter egg hunt. Like, who's going to be the person that finds it? It's like you put 1,000 people in a park and you hide, one really valuable item. It could be gold, whatever. You hide something somewhere. You got 1,000 people. Who's going to find it? And it just became like that. It became like that. And I think that there was, I don't think it was the majority of people that were interested in this situation, but there was, as with many situations with internet culture, there was a very loud minority in the group that was becoming increasingly more like obsessed with what was happening and figuring it out. And I think that they got incredibly attached to what was happening, and incredibly attached to the communities that literal communities rose in the span of this reveal. Like, maybe in the beginning to some degree, like when people first started putting like the dots together and like, drawing conclusions and speculating. But definitely over the course of that week of the reveal, entire communities, Discord servers are coming up. You got thousands of people, getting into subreddits and Discord communities, and little subset communities on Twitter and things like that. Entire communities were coming up around this thing. And for it to just fizzle out the way that it did, I think that a lot of people like really struggled to cope with that. And I think that a lot of people didn't want to lose something that they were investing so much of themselves personally into. And I think that it created a lot of, really unfortunate situations for a lot of people that struggled with loneliness, struggled with mental illness, struggled with substance abuse. Like, and that, not to put something that heavy on, Sony or Kojima or Hassan or a video game or whatever. I just think it was like this really unfortunate thing that happened on the side of this. And I don't necessarily think that there's anyone to blame. I think that this was going to happen, but I just think that whether it's Blue Box and Silent Hill and this situation, or whether it's, it could be someone at work, that someone gets obsessed over. It could be, a drug, or it could be food, or it could be anything. Some people have a really hard time like letting go, or, especially if they start to identify with a particular activity, a particular diet, a particular lifestyle, a particular person. And some people really just, they built up their own identity around this game, where it became a thing where obviously people thought this might be an ARG, right? This might be some kind of augmented reality, real-time game that's being played with us. And so I feel like a lot of people, and the internet is the perfect place to do this. They started creating their own ARGs within the ARG. They started creating their own alternate identities on the internet, and they wanted to become characters in this game. And that's all well and good for, most people, like, just, for a regular person, whatever that is. But I'm sure, for the sake of what I'm saying, for a regular person, that's not a problem, because, when it falls apart or it doesn't work out or whatever, we can move on to something else we enjoy. We can move on. But there are people that have a hard time letting go once they invest in something. And I don't think it's anyone's fault, but I think it was a very unfortunate like side effect of this whole situation, and the hype that built up around it. I don't think it's fair to point fingers at any one particular person or company or anything like that, because it's just human behavior. It's going to exist and it's going to happen no matter what. But it really sucked, and it really had a negative effect on, people that it should not have. It started to affect, it started to have a very negative effect on people that already were struggling with like certain aspects of mental illness and stuff like that. But it also started to affect, people like me that were just trying to have some fun with it. And a lot of innocent people got caught up in these communities that came up around this situation, that were like really toxic and really obsessed. And we all kind of became players in this game. And people like me, I did not intend to become such a big player in this game the way that I did. And I wasn't prepared for the side effects of that. And I certainly never intended for anyone to idolize me, or, become, attached to me in some way as, the abandoned streamer or whatever. But it did, that happened to me. And if that happened to me again, with only like, I think at my max, there was like 4,500 people in my chat, and then over 100,000 people that clicked on it. But when you've got hundreds of thousands of people on the regular looking at your Twitter or seeing about, I can't imagine how it affected some other people, but I saw many people get dragged into situations they weren't comfortable with, and getting like mischaracterized, or people see your role in this game and they begin to confuse that with the real you in real life, or to confuse you with anything outside of that. This is who you are now. You're this person to me, and I want you to be this person. I need you to be this person. I'm not ready to let go. And I started to experience that energy and that hostility. And that's why when the stream ended, I knew that I had to make the decision, because when that stream ended, I knew that I had an opportunity in front of me. I could embrace what just happened, and I could continue. I could make my content, all of my content, revolve around this community, revolve around this ARG, revolve around Kojima and Abandoned and everything. or I could let it go and just continue to move on. And obviously the allure of continuing with it was I had so much attention. I had so many eyes on me. I knew that if I continued to lean into it, that that it would be good for me financially. It would be good for me for my career and my channel. But I was already seeing this very unhealthy side of it. And I just did not, as somebody who was being looked up to by a lot of people at the time, I felt like I felt a certain degree of like moral pressure to do the right thing. Like I felt like, like ethics and morality really needed to be looked at more than anything else, because I didn't want to. I said that there's no one to blame for that situation with people getting obsessed over this game, over this ARG, right? But when you know that it's happening and you have a chance to let the situation go and you continue to encourage it for your own benefit, that's when, yeah, that's when you're doing something wrong. That's just wrong. And I could not, in good faith, be a part of that or encourage that. And I think that every streamer has to deal with that no matter what, because if I ever do blow on YouTube, if I ever do like gain, it doesn't even matter. Like, I think right now, I said when this started, I was holding 5 to 15 viewers on my streams. Now a bad day for me is 20, a good day is 40 or 50. Some days I do 60 or 70, right? So I'm doing much better. I'm still a small streamer though, and even with my smaller audience, I had 700 subs. Now I have like 4.3 thousand, still small. I've already experienced things that I didn't think I was big enough or important enough to experience. So I do think it's unavoidable. And I think that, my heart goes out to other content creators, other streamers, internet personalities that are in that situation where, they're being obsessed over or idolized in a way where, things that you say and things that you do on stream when you're just trying to have fun, when you're just trying to do your thing and be yourself, can have like real world consequences on another person's life through no fault or intended fault of your own, and then have a crowd of people look at you like you did this personally to another person. And I know that's a whole nother conversation, but yeah, there was a lot to it. And when that stream ended, I sat down for a long time to think about what I was going to do and what decision I was going to make, and what was most important to me, and how much I wanted to succeed on YouTube and being a streamer, um you know versus how important doing the right thing was, even if it didn't include the clout, even if it meant walking away from more subscribers, walking away from money, walking away from internet clout, which I don't really care too much about the clout, but I know what it can do for a creator. Um, it was hard to walk away from, because, it was right there in front of me. Like I could be the abandoned guy, but I walked away from it because I felt like it was a dangerous game to play.
What events or connections that you made or discovered in your investigations made you wonder if this could be more than an indie developer?
What were some of the connections, or some of the things that I found out through my own investigation that made me think it was more than just an indie developer? Okay. So, I think that the connections that I talked about earlier were enough in and of themselves to make anyone suspicious. There was, there's Kojima's history. There's the fact that, Konami was not making good games, not going to make good games with these IPs. They weren't going to sell these IPs, but there was still money to be made. And if there's money to be made, Konami's going to try to make that money. So licensing it out to somebody else makes sense. Giving another studio the opportunity to make a good game with these IPs, and you just get your cut or whatever, that seems provocative to me. I'm not a businessman. There might be aspects of it I'm not seeing, but the whole situation in and of itself uh, was enough to make me think that something was going on. And learning more about Hassan Karaman and not not being able to make sense of the of PlayStation and Sony's relationship with Blue Box and Hassan, given their history, which wasn't good. There was just a lot of things that made me feel like this could not be an indie developer. I mean, they were talking about they were using, like motion capture technology. They talked about using, they were trying to get 8K textures for their game. uh they were saying things that an indie studio doesn't say. In fact, honestly, they were saying things that no studio really says. They were doing a lot of things that didn't make sense for an indie developer. I think one of the biggest things, like, I would, I made a lot of connections when I was doing that stream and continued to make a couple of connections afterwards. But I had a lot of people that came to me wanting to offer, um, inside information, but I had no way to vet those people because I had a lot of people that came to me that were completely insincere, trying to give me like insider information that they wanted me to talk about, and then I had people that came to me that were sincere, but it was hard to tell them apart. I still have people in my community. I still have people that watch my streams. I still have people that come to my Discord server and that are now regular members of my streams. Like, even though I don't talk about this stuff anymore, I still have people that are like regular, and regular community members that claim to have inside knowledge, or have insinuated that they're directly involved with whatever's happening over there. I guess they just also like my content in general enough to stick around. But there's still people in my community that heavily insinuate or either outright say that they're involved with Blue Box. They know what's going on. They're working on this project and things like that. And I'm just like, well, cool, man. Make something good, please. Make something good. Uh, but I can't really entertain it past that unless you're willing to come to me in my DMs with, damn near irrefutable evidence of your involvement in this. And I don't think anyone's going to do that because they're going to be too afraid that I'll be the one that spills the beans, which I wouldn't. I would love to be able to, be a part of that. And, I would never, reveal sources or anything like that. But there's a lot of people that want to trick me, and there's a lot of people being afraid of being tricked by me. So when it comes to like some like secret source that I might have, I honestly, I might have that. I might have much more access to these people than I realize because I have people in my community that, have made these claims, continue to make these claims. I still get DMs on Twitter about it. But I am not able to confirm their identity. I'm not able to, confirm beyond a reasonable doubt that they are who they say they are, that they have this knowledge. And I think that they're also a little wary of trying to provide that proof because, then I would have something like massive, like I would have information that's extremely valuable and extremely sensitive. And who the hell am I? So most of what I was able to determine, I determined it just by looking at the behavior of Hassan himself and the company and the way that they were saying things, the way that they were framing. They were continually denying having anything to do with Kojima, having anything to do with Konami, Metal Gear, Silent Hill, while at the same time doing everything they could to lean into this situation. Why would an indie studio do that and then release a game that's not Silent Hill or Metal Gear Solid, knowing that everyone in the world is going to be like, oh, fuck you. Why would you? What the fuck? Where's the game that you promised? What our expectations are. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like being catfished. Why would an indie company that obviously has enough money to get into the business or to do this, but they're obviously not like, sitting on just, it's not EA, it's not Activision. They're not sitting on mountains of cash. Why would they do something like this and risk like destroying their whole company. It doesn't make sense. So there were just a lot of things that just did not like make any sense to me. If you were to take everything at face value, even if you tried to take everything at face value, you couldn't make sense of it because they were constantly contradicting themselves. So to me, the only thing that did make sense, the only way that I could rationalize what was happening in front of me, not to say that I'm right, but the only way that I could rationalize it was that this had to be some kind of, you know, uh, secret project with a very big reveal that was being set up meticulously to build hype and to keep something a secret and build up to some huge climax. And then we never got it. So it's just like, but there had to be something there. Otherwise, the whole thing was just like a company just literally like self-destructing in front of us voluntarily. And that doesn't make any sense to me either.
Do you still believe there is a conspiracy, or was the fandom obsessively fixating on nothing?
Do I believe that there was a conspiracy, or that the fandom was, basically doing it to themselves, becoming obsessed when they shouldn't have? Yeah, I definitely 100% believe there's a conspiracy, of course. Yeah, I 100% believe that. I don't want to call it a conspiracy because that word has such stigma attached to it. But what I will say is that what was happening was very provocative. What was happening was very interesting. It was definitely manufactured. And most importantly, it was dishonest and insincere. What was happening was dishonest and insincere. But why was it dishonest or insincere? If there was dishonesty and insincerity being deployed as a way to mask a Silent Hill reveal, then I think we were okay with it. I think we were okay with that. I think that we were all like, yeah, they're playing tricks with us. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm down because I think that there's a reward at the end of this, right? Like, I'm willing to play this game. I'm willing to, get caught up in this and to be played with to some degree, with the understanding that at the end of it, Kojima is going to walk out from behind a curtain and reveal Metal Gear or Silent Hill or something like that. So I don't blame, there were people that became obsessed in a really unhealthy way. I mean, obsessed. There are people that became obsessed. I think the majority of people were just, very interested in it and very passionate about the IPs that could be involved. Again, you look at the storied history of Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid, which I know we talked about earlier, but there's so many games there. There's so much lore there. Even if there's a Silent Hill game that I didn't like or didn't get attached to or didn't think was as interesting as the first or the second or whatever, there's somebody out there that particular, the lore from that game, they just fell in love with it. They're extremely passionate. So, I think a lot of people, became interested in it because it seemed like we all were so certain that there was a payoff at the end. We all became, because for the reasons that I've already stated, it would not make sense to have this many coincidences, lean into it, play off of it, build it up, allow this hype. Like, nobody is really shutting it down. It wouldn't make sense to do all of that and then not have the payoff at the end, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I think that we all kind of went into it like we wanted to be a part of this. We wanted to be a part of this story. We wanted to be a part of this game. We thought there was a happy ending waiting for us. We didn't get that. And some people had such a hard time accepting that they continued to hold on that no, there's going to be a happy ending a week from now. No, on the 25th anniversary of blah, 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 that's when they're going to Tokyo Game Show. That's when it's going to, no, the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's game. That's when it's going to, and it just became this thing where it's like, it's going to be next week. It's going to be next week. It's going to be next month, the next game event, the next one. And that sucked, man. That really sucked. But I do think 100% that there was, misdirection being deployed because there was something else going on. There was, in some way, form, shape, there was a conspiracy going on. But was it a conspiracy by Kojima and Konami, Sony working together? There's going to be a reveal. Is this a conspiracy around the reveal of a game anymore, or is this a company that's that was attempting to conspire to generate funds that they could just take to the bank and run off with? I don't know. I don't think that there's a question about whether or not there's a legitimate conspiracy here. I don't think it's arguable that there is. It's just, what is it really about? What is the conspiracy? What was really happening behind the curtain? Something was going on backstage. We just don't know what it was. So I don't think there's a question about whether or not there was someone pulling strings. It's just the what and why and who. We just still don't have those answers. And I think that that's what's still, I think that's what's still captivating some people to hold on.
Do you think there is a problem with the fandom when it comes to the deification of creators such as Kojima, for example?
So do I think there's a problem in the fandom with deifying, creators like Kojima and things like that? Of course. I mean, that's unhealthy behavior for anyone in almost any situation, as a general rule. There's a reason why these cliches and these sayings exist about not putting people up on pedestals. It's always a bad idea to do that to someone that in real life. You try to deify anybody, they're going to let you down. They're going to hurt you. And the more that you deify or worship somebody, the more their slightest transgressions are going to offend you. And I've experienced that being a streamer. That some of the people in my community that look up to me the most, and I don't want to say obsess, but some of the people that follow me the most, that get involved the most, are also the most sensitive to me having an opinion they don't like, doing something they don't like, making content they don't like. Once people start to worship you to any degree, once people start to create an alter ego of you, create an identity for you, they expect you to fit in that identity. And you're in a box, and when you step outside of that box, it's like it hurts them. It's like they take deep offense to it. That's unhealthy in any situation. And you see that a lot in gaming fandoms. Elden Ring just came out, and you see that with you see that conversation happening regarding the community that loves From Software, loves Soulsborne games. And I find that a large portion of that community is incredibly reasonable and incredibly passionate, but not, but there is a difference between somebody who, loves something and is passionate about something, and somebody that obsesses over it, or, starts to form an unhealthy relationship with that person or that product. You know, you see fans of a football team. The football team loses and they're sad. Fans of a football team, the football team loses and they break their TV and they start, destroying their living room. That's the difference that we're talking about, and I just think it applies to all things, not just in gaming. But I do think it's something that we, as fans of just anything, we do need to check ourselves, and we do need to practice letting go. I think that people need to practice that in their personal lives, just in general. Some people have a hard time letting go of alcohol. Some people have a hard time letting go of, a significant other, an ex. Their parents, they have a hard time letting go of abandoned. It could be anything. So yeah, it exists in gaming, but just as much as I am, I have no problem acknowledging that exists in, in the gaming community, that there's people that put these creators and these games and these companies up on a pedestal. They deify them, they worship them, and then they defend anything they do. You see that a lot with Nintendo. Nintendo does a lot of really shitty things. Nintendo does a lot of anti-consumer things. Nintendo they've done so many things to just straight up spit on their communities. And you have people that are members of those communities that call it out. And then you have people that are members of those communities that will defend Nintendo to the death, no matter what, because they wrap up their own identity in the identity of someone else. So they need them to be the good guy. Does that make sense? Like you start to identify with a person or a thing so much that it's like you connect with them. So you need them to be the good guy in any situation. You need them to be right and be good, because that means you're right and you're good as a fan, right? So that's just a general thing that you see. And I have no problem acknowledging that. It gets talked about a lot on Twitter and, YouTube. You see creators talk about it a lot, but also I don't like it when people act like that's the majority. That's not the majority. And I think that those people are very vocal, and I think that we give them too much attention sometimes. Maybe a lot of the time we give them too much attention. We're so much quicker to acknowledge, we're much quicker to acknowledge somebody that goes on Twitter with a shitty, toxic, provoking, baiting opinion than we are to respond to somebody that's just, saying, I really like this game because of this. We're just quicker to scroll by. We're quicker. Yeah, me too. Scroll. And then somebody's like, yeah, fuck Street Fighter because there's not enough characters that look like me, or there's not enough of this, or there's not enough of that, and then, let me give you, I got to give my thoughts on the, so when we start giving that vocal minority of people that are being really shitty, or that are like, obsessing over a game in an unhealthy way, when we start to treat them like the majority, when we start to give them more attention than we give the majority, you're going to see more of that, because you're rewarding it. You're interacting more with the people that are being assholes than you're interacting with people that are giving constructive criticism, people that are, trying to be positive about something. They're getting ignored. Toxicity and negativity is being rewarded with more engagement, more retweets, more attention, which, attention unfortunately translates into financial gain on the internet. If you know how to leverage attention, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. If you know how to leverage attention, there's an incredible amount of money that can be generated off of it. So not only do you have, people feeding into it, but you see it with, in gaming journalism. Like you look at Kotaku, you look at Polygon, you look at any of them, and, for every article they put out that's thought provoking or interesting, there's another article they put out that's just baiting and just toxic and just complete garbage. And then that one gets all the interaction, and that one, and because the interaction is there, there's more advertising, there's more revenue generated off of it because advertisers get involved and all this. So it's like all these people don't understand the ways in which they're being manipulated by just advertisers. They don't understand the ways that they're being directed. And I think that is the problem, the bigger problem that needs to be addressed. We're so busy dealing with pawns on the chessboard that we never get to the king or queen. We never get to an end game because it's just pawns, and I'm sorry for ranting so much, but that's something that I've been feeling for a long time, and I don't know how to express it. These are things that I want to say when I'm live all the time, but it doesn't feel right to get up on my soapbox and stand up, at my podium and preach down at everyone else. But these are things that I wish every day somebody would ask me about, that I wish people would, provoke me into a situation where I can say these things in a way that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to just stand up on a podium and say it, but these are things that I want to tell people all the time. But you don't want to come across like you're preaching to people, because if you're just a decent person, like most people I really think are, otherwise it would be chaos on the streets all the time. Most people are decent human beings. So you don't want to wag your finger at them, because they're just going to look at you like, why are you talking to me? Like, why are you, that's how people feel when propaganda is put into their films and their video games. It's like it's like you're putting so much energy into trying to talk to somebody that is hateful or ignorant. You're never going to get through to these people. 99% of the time, they're, an ad on TV isn't going to make them, oh, I should be a better person. That's not, if that worked, then the world would be perfect. But you spend so much time acknowledging them. I feel like you're forgetting about me. I love, I love what you do. I love what you make. I want to keep buying it. I want to keep playing it. I want to keep watching it. I've been loyal. I've been spending money on this for years. I love this, franchise or whatever. But now it's like you're putting more energy into trying to acknowledge somebody that's only saw one episode and went on Twitter and went on a rant about it, and then it went viral, and now you just spending all your time trying to address this and forgetting about us. And then that's why you get phrases like "get woke, go broke" and things like that, which I don't even try to say anything about that, because again, these buzzwords have so much stigma attached to them. But that's what essentially people, I think, from my point of view, are trying to say. It's like you're trying so hard to propagate and message down to people you don't like and people that you want to change, people that aren't even listening to you. And it's like you're forgetting about your core audience, that we're not problematic. We just enjoy your product, and we don't want to be preached to like we're bad, like we're them. We're not them. So it's a whole complicated thing, but I wish that people would talk about it more. I wish that people would get to the bottom of it. Instead, it just feels like we only have surface level conversations about this stuff, and we never get to the root of the problem. We never make any progress because we never go deep enough. We only spend time on the surface, and it's just really fucking hard to watch and really frustrating. And I think it's one of the reasons why I make the content that I make, because it's so frustrating that people look more and more to escape from that. And it's getting harder to do because that issue is getting worked into your entertainment more and more. And it's like now I can't get away from how shitty the world can be, because now you're putting it in all my entertainment to remind me of it. And that's why, like, I want to talk about these things. But when I stream and I'm trying to provide entertainment for people, I try to also keep in mind that I'm trying to provide a way for people also to get away from that. So, how do I address things in the world that I want to address without, shoving it down someone's throat? And it feels like the only way that I can do it is in these interviews that I get. I maybe get like 3 or 4 of these a year, but when we get in, when somebody asks me and gives me an opportunity to talk, I have a lot to say. But outside of that, I try to not preach. I try to not shove it down anyone's throat, because I know how that feels too. It's really hard to balance. It's really hard to figure out, how to say the things that are really deep inside of me, how to express that. And then also keep it lighthearted and fun. It's hard to manage that. And I don't think that I've got it figured out yet, but I feel like when I do get that figured out, it's going to be really good for me personally. And I think it's also going to be really good for me professionally. And that's probably like the next big hurdle that I'm trying to figure out just in life and in content creation in general.
Do you have a message for anyone out there struggling with mental health issues or thoughts of suicide?
I would just tell anybody that's, suffering with mental health issues or, dealing with like suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, of course, my first piece of advice is going to be and has to be, you should seek professional help from somebody that has experience helping people that are in a situation like that. Of course, like, don't be afraid to see a therapist. Don't be afraid to talk to your doctor. Don't be afraid to try an antidepressant or a medication that might help you. There's, I know people are scared of that kind of stuff and there's a stigma around it. But if you look at social media right now, you can look at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it doesn't matter. You can look at YouTube. Like, everybody seems to be talking about mental health and trauma and mental illness. I mean, if you were to just look, like, even like, on my Twitter, it's mostly professional contacts that I follow or associate with. On Facebook, it's a lot of like people that I know personally because that's how Facebook networks and builds its networking, but there's also people that I don't know. So like Twitter for me is much more impersonal. Facebook is much more personal in the way that I act, the people that follow me up there and know me versus, you know what I'm saying? And in both pools, in the really impersonal one where it's just random people all over the world, and the one that's like more concentrated on people that know me, live in my area, it's the same thing. People talking about mental health, people, just, talking about how much they're struggling. So the hardest thing about it, I think, is feeling alone, you know? Of course, the first piece of advice has to be, speak to a professional and don't be afraid to try medication. Don't be afraid to try, to talk to your doctor. But outside of that, outside of, that first part is, you know, don't ever feel alone. You know, it's easy to say that. It's harder to do because it's so weird how social media gives us the ability to connect with people, easier, quicker, faster than ever. But more and more people feel alone. And it's because the connections that we're building on online are insincere. They're not genuine. You're often connecting to the persona or the image of a person, and not connecting to them like a real human being. Like even if you were, it would still just be text and stuff. But who knows? Like that might still be okay. You know what I mean? But the fact is that the majority of those connections for a lot of people, I think for most people, are insincere, and they're not built on genuinely connecting to another human being as much as connecting to an idea or a persona. And so people are connecting more to more people faster than ever, but those connections aren't sincere. They're not genuine. You've got you've got you've got 5,000 people you're following on Twitter, or that are following you. How many of those people can you call randomly at 3 a.m. if are having bad thoughts, or if you just are crying your eyes out, if you went through a breakup recently, or a divorce, or something happened with your kid, and you just need someone to talk to? How many of those people can you actually call at 3 o'clock in the morning? The truth is that in my real life, to put perspective on it, in my real life group of friends, it's like my group of people that I'm genuinely close to is probably, I could count on two hands, probably less than 10 people. And out of that small group of like really filtered out, like just that core group of people, I could probably still only call like two of them if I'm lucky on any given night. Because even despite how close we are, they got lives, they got relationships, marriages, kids. They got responsibilities, they got the pressure of their own life. So people have more stress in their lives now than ever, I think. And so they're trying to tend to their own stress. They don't have room for yours, let alone the internet. So the question becomes, how can you connect with people in a way that is genuine? How can you how can you, feel less alone? How can you address issues that you're having? You have to genuinely, you can't seek out any more of these artificial connections with people on the internet. You have to seek out genuine ones, and that takes a little bit of effort. You got to go on these subreddits. You got to look for these. They're out there. There are genuine communities in places like Reddit. There's genuine discords, there's genuine communities on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and YouTube, that you can find where these people will be there for you. They might not call you and you had exchange numbers, but there are communities that are built up more around people that are struggling, that are trying to be there for each other because that's all they've got. And you can find those communities if you look for it. And I think that you have to also, self-diagnosing is dangerous, but you have to try to be as honest with yourself as you can be. What's really wrong? You know, what's really upsetting you? You know, yeah, that breakup is upsetting you, but why are you having a hard time letting him go? Like, what's underneath that? Why can't you move on? You know, is it because you're in your 50s and you feel like you're too old to move on? You're worried it's too late for you? Well, now we're getting to something we can really talk about, you know? Is it because you feel like you're unattractive? Is it because you got too attached in some unhealthy way to this person? Is it because you feel like you're not good enough? You have to be willing to dig under the surface. It's like the conversations I was talking about earlier. You have to be willing to have an uncomfortable conversation with yourself where you ask yourself, like, what's really wrong? Like, what's really bothering you? What's really upsetting you? Why are you sad? And you have to be willing to dig into that and uncensor yourself with yourself and unfilter. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You just you have to be willing to have some uncomfortable conversations with yourself. um yeah, and I think that the more you're able, whether it's by sitting down and having an honest conversation with yourself or talking to family, friends, people that know you, et cetera, or seeking professional help. I think that a big part of the formula for a lot of people, maybe not everyone, is you have to figure out what it is that you're really upset about or afraid of. Because once you're able to identify the things that are upsetting you, the things that are scaring you and making you uncomfortable, then the second part of the equation is taking actions to address those things. Make changes to your lifestyle, make changes to the way that you interact with people, the way that you treat people, the way that you treat yourself. And then I think that recovery becomes a real possibility, and it becomes something that you can experience. And I think that that's what people want, you know. But it's hard, and the more isolated you feel while you're trying to take that journey, the harder it's going to feel. So you have to address that isolation the best you can, and then you have to get to the root of your unhappiness to the best of your ability, and then move, then take steps, even if it's just baby steps towards recovering from that situation you're in. um yeah, and it's like it when you outline it, it can seem like such a simple, like, easy, process, um but you have to give yourself, and if you're talking to somebody that's going through it, you have to give an extra layer of, like, lenience, and if nobody's giving it to you, you have to give it to yourself. That, like, it's like being physically ill when you're mentally ill. When you're physically ill, you might be able when you're healthy, you might be able to run 2 miles. When you're sick, you might be able to jog, around the block, and that's all you can do. Just get the blood flowing a little bit. It's like that when you're mentally ill too. What seems like something simple and easy to do for somebody that's not mentally ill can be extraordinarily difficult for somebody that is suffering mentally. And you might not be able to run 2 miles. You might be able to just walk around the block. So just do that today and pat yourself on the back and say good job, and then get up tomorrow and try to walk a little bit further, and then you'll eventually get to where you want to go. That's what I think. That's like the best advice that I can give.
What else can you tell me about that?
When so when I graduated from high school, and I received an academic scholarship, and I received a scholarship for acting, for theater. So I was when I went to college, I studied two things. I studied to become an actor, and I studied to become a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And yeah, I was yeah, that's what I really wanted to do. Entertainment was like my number one thing that I loved, entertaining people, whether it was acting, professional wrestling, streaming. But right underneath that was I wanted to be a therapist or a psychiatrist and help people with mental issues. Um, so it's like, but it's hard to combine the two. Um, it's hard to combine the two because a lot of people are looking for escapism with entertainment. So it's hard to, like I said earlier, it's hard to entertain people. It's hard to talk about something like this that's so real and so raw and still keep the entertainment factor there. And I don't know how to do it yet. I've had moments where I've done it when I'm live, but I think that the audience, I need to know that my audience is okay with going into that territory. So we usually only go there when someone in my chat provokes it. But if they provoke it, if someone in my chat, confesses to me that they've been thinking about self-harm or confesses to me that they've been my streams, like some people will say this to me, people sometimes at least once every 2 or 3 months I'll get a donation from out of nowhere and somebody will say, I was in a dark place when I found your stream and I was self-harming, I was drinking, I was suicidal, and watching your streams every day has helped me get through it. And I don't know what I did. I don't know what I said that helped that person through something that serious. I don't know how I played a role in their recovery. I'm just so thankful that I did. But and it's just it's incredibly flattering. Like I don't know how to, I don't know how to properly convey to them like how much it means to me that I even had the opportunity to help them. I'm just thankful every time it happens.
Do you have any advice for people online to help them better protect themselves and their data?
Yeah. So talking about online privacy and data protection and stuff like that, I mean, it's just, you know, it's hard to discuss it without feeling like you're kind of just parroting the main talking points, that everybody knows, which is that it's incredibly important. You need to be really important about your you need to be very careful over your passwords, your data. It is disturbing um how little information somebody needs in order to just open that door to everything. People people don't understand um that something as simple as, a social media post with your family that has your car in the background and the license plate is visible. A picture in front of your house that has, maybe your house has your street number, your mailbox number, on it or somewhere visible. I mean, even people that just know your phone number. It's incredibly easy for somebody who, makes up their mind that they want to know more about you. They want to know where you're at. They want to know where you live. They want a way to get to you. Like our our laws and the way that like data privacy is I regulated. I don't know if that's the right word, regulated on the internet and stuff like that. The laws have not caught up to the technology at all. And people say that all the time, but it is so true. Like, and I've learned this, dealing, as somebody that's been doxxed several times and all this other stuff. Um, once your information is out there, you can't get it back, I could move to a new home, but even if I move to a new home, once I've like registered it, once I've started paying bills on it or taxes on it or whatever, there's enough of my other personal information out there that new address will probably get doxxed pretty quickly. Um, it's not as big of a problem for somebody that's not trying to be like an internet personality. I think in those situations, you have to be more careful when it comes to, your financial information, because that's what, if you are just a blank face to this person, they're not interested in who you are as much as what you have, things like using a VPN can help, which I've started using a VPN, started using it too late, doesn't matter now. I can, I think most people don't really know how VPNs work or anything like that. My experience with VPN taught me that it pretty much helps protect your IP, helps protect your physical location when you're connected to the internet. I think more people are familiar with VPNs when it comes to being able to use it to stream content that they can't watch in their country. But it's also really important when you're like playing multiplayer games on the internet to help protect your address, help protect you from getting doxxed while you're gaming online or having somebody DDoS you and shutting down your modem and your router and stuff like that. But like I said, if you're not on top of that stuff at the beginning, my information is already out there. I can hide my IP address now, but the people that have already got it have already got it. Certain I know in my case, my ISP provider doesn't care how much I get doxxed. They will not change my IP address for me. They have refused it. They maintain that you have a static IP, deal with it. So can't, you know what I mean? So once it's out there, it's out there. But if you're trying to be an internet personality, if you're trying to be a streamer, if you're trying to, do anything on TikTok, Twitter, any social media platform, YouTube, anything like that, you need to know that no matter how big or small you are, no matter how successful you are or are not, someone will find your content and want to know more about you and be willing to do a lot of things that you're not comfortable with to accomplish that goal. You need to watch everything that you say on the internet. It doesn't even have to be in relation to like being worried about getting canceled, getting worried about being like saying something that somebody you like a bad tweet or a bad opinion. Like forget that stuff. It's like it's anything. You need to be careful about how you frame everything you say. For instance, the first time somebody tried to cancel me, somebody on Twitter with 40,000 followers and I had 400 tried to cancel me and tried to deplatform me off of YouTube because of the abandoned stream at the end of the abandoned stream. Because when it ended, I was like, man, fuck BlueBox, man. Like they're going to get so much backlash right now and they deserve it. They deserve it because this is just, and of course I didn't mean they deserve to die, that they should have their building burned down and crazy shit like that. Didn't matter. One girl with 40,000 followers, 40 or 400,000 followers on Twitter, took that sentence. They get what they deserve or whatever, or they deserve it or whatever, and took just that, put it on Twitter, and added her own context to it, saying that when I said that, I was encouraging my audience to attack the developers and physically, any way that they could to harm them physically, in person, find them. That's what I meant. That's what I was responding to in my chat, and then tagged YouTube gaming, anybody that could see that and deplatform me. I promise you, when I said that, it never crossed my mind. And it's happened to me multiple times since then as well. It's just things that you would never think about that could be used against you will be the bigger you get and the more clout. See, they don't have to be successful. Like you take somebody like Markiplier, PewDiePie, anybody that's really famous on the internet, it doesn't matter who it is. They don't have to be successful at deplatforming you or canceling you or getting your information, or they don't have to be successful. All they have to do is just get enough clout off of trying that it boosts their numbers, and they're happy with that. So you just have to keep in mind everything you post, every picture you post, what's in the background. Is there something that gives away the location? Um, and of course, your living situation plays into it. Like, you live in a very safe neighborhood. You live, with your family. You have an alarm system in your house. You have ways to protect yourself. Maybe you're not as worried about it. Okay, cool. I mean, even Dr. Disrespect had his windows shot out at his home when his wife and his 2-year-old daughter, I think, were inside the home. So it doesn't guarantee anything. But you take somebody who lives by themselves, already might live in like a bad part of town, doesn't have access to ways to protect themselves. Then you got to be even more careful. Even if somebody, like, if somebody was to do something, like, if somebody were to get a hold of XQC, get a hold of his personal information enough to get his stream shut down for a week, or get his internet shut down for a week, or any of this other stuff, even if it only affecting him for a week, he'll be okay. It would suck. I'm sure he would be really pissed off. It's not okay that it happened, but he's not going to be homeless because of it. You take somebody that is still in the trenches, still fighting for survival, still, fighting for every view, that is just starting all up like me. you know, uh, if somebody comes after someone my size, and gets them shut down for a week, 2 weeks, that alone could be enough to kill my channel. That's the thin ice that we're on at the level that I'm at. Even with the success I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of notoriety. I've had big donations. Like, I'm not going to deny I've had a very financially supportive community that donates to me. But, if you're making, $50,000 a year and you get into streaming, versus somebody that's making $10,000 a year and gets in this. It being really pissing you off and killing your entire career because you can't survive. If you go a month without a stream, if you go a month without being able to stream, or if somebody gets a hold of your personal information and leaks your private messages, tries to get you in trouble, cost you views, cost you subscribers, like smaller creators, our careers are so fragile, so fragile. And if you are not careful, it can be taken from you like that. So, just be very careful and take it very seriously, because if you don't, um, at some point, something will happen and you will wish you did. That's a guarantee. That is a guarantee.
Assuming Hassan is a real person, do you have a message for him?
You know, I, it's hard for me to give a message to him, because I don't know who he is or what he's really doing or what his role in this is. Like, it's possible, right? It's possible that Hassan is a very smart, very scummy businessman, right? But it's also possible that he's a pawn in this too, and that this is something going on with Konami and Sony and other people, and he was contracted to play a part. It's what's likely versus unlikely is a different conversation. I'm just talking about what's possible. So I couldn't really advise him one way or the other. Of course, people threatening him, threatening his family and stuff like that, like, that's just not okay. Like, that's something that we all know is not okay. And that shouldn't happen. Like, yeah, you can be mad, you can be pissed off about what happened with Abandoned, and you can vent about it, you can be frustrated about it, you can talk about how much it pissed you off on Twitter, you can say this is fucked up, you can put out a video on YouTube and say fuck this game, I don't want to play this game. But once you start like directing that that anger towards actual human beings, it's different. We're crossing a line, you know what I mean? And it's not something that I would endorse, it's not something that I've ever endorsed. I have said plenty of times, fuck a game. I have said plenty of times, fuck that company. I've never, once said, fuck this person. Screw the actual developers that worked on it, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times our anger, if we were to direct it in the right direction, it's some suit that's higher up in a corporation that made the decision that we're unhappy with. So, just, aiming our anger at the street level people, that's just a drive-by hitting random. Like it's not, you're not even touching the people that really made the decision that upset you. As far as Hassan, the only thing I would say to that dude is, this whole thing is crazy, and I don't know what your role in it is. Just, stay safe and be as honest as you are legally allowed to be. Like, I really think, unless you've signed an NDA with Konami or Sony and you literally cannot say, like, I fucking can't say, but if you can, I think it's in your best interest to, if, if this is not, about Konami, if there's not a licensing issue going on in the background, if this does said that, he's already said, yeah, but you can't say that while you're teasing it at the same time. And that's what he was doing last year. Now, since then, I don't know. I quit following it after, within the weeks after Abandoned. I had to move on. But, the internet is a dangerous tool when it's in the hands of people that are of a certain mindset. There's just a lot of like really dangerous people that have access to the internet and use that to get access to you. And that can lead to a genuinely dangerous situation. And I wish him the best. I don't want to see anything bad happen to him, but I just hope that if he can give any closure to people that would allow them to move on and leave him alone, then I hope he does that, whether it's, making some kind of announcement, in partner with Konami or Sony, or just releasing a game so it can be over and done with, like releasing the actual name. Like they won't even reveal the name of their game. There's just so many things that BlueBox could have done if they really wanted to shut down this conversation. There's a lot of things that a lot of people could have done to really shut this down, and it seemed like a genuine effort to shut down the hype, shut down the conversation, put an end to this was not made when it really mattered. I don't know about since then because I tuned out a long time ago. I had to. But at the time, I know that there was not a sincere effort made to put a stop to this conversation, to end the mystery, to end the ARG talk, to just, it wasn't shut down. I don't know if somebody let it keep going because they wanted the attention, because they wanted public funding, or if there's more to it and it had to be shut down because of something that happened behind the scenes and NDAs are in place. People can't talk about it. I don't know. But I don't want to see people get hurt. To my knowledge, nobody has been hurt. I think it's a saga that should have wrapped up a long time ago. I think that week, that stream, the Abandoned stream, that was that week. That was the moment. That was the moment that the whole gaming world was watching. And that was the moment to pull the trigger, to pull the curtain back, and to show the world what's really going on. And that was your moment. And I think every day and week that it dragged on after that was just very, very negative for whatever the project is that they're working on. Like at this point, I feel like the only thing that they could do that would be satisfactory, like Kojima would have to come out and say, it's me and Silent Hill, guys. Like anything else at this point could not save whatever it is they're doing, or save their reputation or whatever project. At this point, if they release a game and it's just like a game, I don't see that being enough. I don't see that being enough. So It's a bad.
In the unlikely event Kojima is behind this, and how would you react if he really was working on Silent Hill?
So, uh, you you best believe I'm going to be live for it. I mean, like, okay, so after I've already said this, I've maintained this. This is the truth. After Abandoned, I made a conscious effort to move away. You know, as far as if it ends up, if the conspiracies are true, if it ends up being Kojima, if it ends up being Metal Gear or Silent Hill, if we were right, Team Real, right? If we end up being right, um, for me personally, like I said, I made the choice because I felt like it was the right thing to do, to move away from Abandoned and to get back to the content that I really enjoyed making, which is, I don't just love Metal Gear. I don't just admire Kojima. I love a huge spectrum of games and video, and I want to talk about more than just one franchise, no matter how much I love it, right? So I made that decision to move on, but I'm still aware of the role that I played in the Abandoned saga and the role that Abandoned played in my career. Like, I will always be linked to Abandoned. I will, like, that was the stream that got me partnered with YouTube and YouTube Gaming. That was the stream that ignited my streaming career, where it went from, you know, uh, something that I was trying to do to something I was doing. It was because of that stream and because of that coverage and the Abandoned stream, the 74 hours, 79 hours. It is because of that that I have a career now. I was able to leave my job. I'm able to make a living. So I feel like I'll always have that connection to Blue Box and Abandoned through that stream and through, like, it basically, solidified my career. So whenever they do a legitimate reveal for their game, I'll be live for it. Whenever they, if they announce it ahead of time, if they give us a date and a time, and they say, this is it, we're gonna, first gameplay, or the app is gonna drop a new trailer and we're gonna reveal the name of the game, I'll be there. I'll be live for it. Hell, I might even go live 24 hours early, and we just have a little mini marathon again to kind of relive the moment. I think that there's people, look, over 2,000 people subscribe to me, which, from going from 700 subscribers to almost 3K is a huge jump in one. I mean, it's insane. And a lot of those people are still subscribed to me to this day. They don't comment on the videos. They don't watch my videos. They don't come to my streams. They don't interact with me at all. They subscribe to me because of Abandoned, and they're waiting to see what happens with Abandoned because there hasn't been a legitimate closure yet. So I know that the demand is still there. They haven't left. They haven't unsubscribed. They're still watching. So I know that, the moment that Abandoned is in the news again, my DMs are going to explode. My stream is going to go from like an average of like 40 people being in there to an average of like 150 people. Like, I know what's going to happen. They're going to come back, and I'm going to be there for them. We took this journey together, and we started it together. And over that Tuesday, and what was it, August or September? Like, we started that journey together. You would think I would know the exact date, right? We started that journey together, and I want to finish it together, no matter what the resolution is. But for me personally, like, if it ends up being Kojima, if it ends up being like, the granddaddy of them all, like, I mean, I'll still be like, you son of a bitch, like, well, why? Why did we do it like this? Why did we drag it out? Was it the licensing thing? Like, was this some kind of experiment? What the fuck? Like, I'll want to know why, but man, I mean, I'm still going to be excited. I'm still going to be on board. I'm still going to buy that game. I'm still going to stream it like 100%, like I wasn't so, it never got personal for me. Like, I never hated anyone. I never hated Hassan. I was never personally like furious and like betrayed. Like, if anything, like, I'm too busy being thankful for what that situation did for my career. I am in no position to still be angry. So if it ends up, if we get a happy ending, or what, some might consider a happy ending, I'm excited for it. I would be excited. I would be happy. I would still want to know why it got drug out this long. And, if it's a licensing issue with some NDAs wrapped up in it, that's understandable. If it's a part of some kind of weird Kojima experiment, or even worse, some kind of weird data collection thing that Sony's doing, they got that partnership with Discord and stuff. There's still the potential that something like that, if there's like, especially the data collection thing seems kind of insidious. That could definitely sour the mood a little bit. But of course, we wouldn't find that out in the moment. I'm sure we'd find that out, after the reveal. I would still be excited for the product. I would still be excited for Kojima to be working on this, for it to be, Silent Hills, or Norman Reedus is back involved. I mean, holy shit, dude. I mean, there was teasing that maybe at the Game Awards this year, the end of this year, maybe, Kojima and Keeley, they're boys. Maybe Kojima makes the announcement there. Holy shit. I mean, I'll be there. I will be there. And we're going to close out that journey together. I will be so furious. I will be so furious if they make some kind of blog post about it out of nowhere, or if they do a reveal with no warning whatsoever and I'm not live for it. I will be furious. As far as the general gaming community, how I think they'll respond, I think that there will be a vocal portion of the community, and a vocal portion, I think a big portion of journalists, gaming journalists, big gaming YouTubers, big personalities in the industry, and people that cover the industry, that are going to be like, no, fuck this. Like, that's not the way to do it. Like, blah, blah, blah. I think there is going to be another vocal minority, but I think they're going to be the minority. I think that the general gaming population is going to be too excited, for the revival of Metal Gear, the revival of Silent Hill, and for Kojima to be involved in his next project. I think there's going to be too much hype, too much excitement. It's going to reignite, because like Team Fake won, the people that were like, it's not going to be Kojima, it's not going to be Silent Hill, and there was that back and forth. Even on my stream, it was back and forth. People were going back and forth. And Team Fake won. They claimed victory. We told you it wasn't. We told you you're so gullible and dumb, and you only have yourself to blame. We told you were wrong. If it ends up that they were right, the comeback, it's going to be like Rocky. It's going to be a comeback story. So I think that I think people are going to be too excited about it. It's going to give them something fun to talk about. It's going to give them something to be excited about as far as the product itself, regardless of like some shady things around it. Like if Kojima is making a Silent Hill and that's what they reveal, there's going to be too much excitement, too much fun. I just think that the positivity and the excitement and the hype will overwhelm the people that say we shouldn't forgive this. We need to keep in mind what they did to us. Like, I don't think that negativity will be able to thrive in the face of probably the immeasurable hype. I mean, think about when the Game Awards happened this year and Guillermo del Toro made that comment. I hope I pronounced his name right. Made that comment about Silent Hills and about PET, when he made that comment about one horror game, or one atmosphere in a game I really liked was Silent Hill. I hope they come back one day. Like, people weren't saying, oh, fuck that. No, fuck that. And blah, blah, blah. People weren't shitting on that. People were excited. Everyone froze. Like, holy shit, like, is it about to happen? Even the naysayers, even the people that had been on Twitter, like dogging it, like talking negative about it, even on their streams, because I went back and watched how other people reacted to it. People that I know had been shitting on it the whole time, even they like froze, like were holding their breath. So yeah, I think that you're gonna have that vocal minority that's complaining and that's angry, and maybe, as considering, when we find out more about why this played out the way it did, maybe there are some things that we should still be thinking about. Maybe there are some things that we should still, that we should still be focusing on other than just the exciting game. We'll see when we get there, but overall, I think across the entire gaming community, the hype and the swerve and the fact that they still somehow pulled this off is going to just steamroll right through any negativity and hate. There'll always be the contrarians that want to bury anything that's popular just because it gets some clicks, but I think that they'll get completely steamrolled by the hype and the excitement. Right. It helps also, like, in terms of like reinforcing that this is something that people should not like take so seriously to the level of obsession. It kind of, the bag, I think, like, is great for like reinforcing that this should be kind of lighthearted a little bit, it's kind of like it kind of makes me think of, are you familiar with Healthy Gamer, GG? It's kind of like that, but a different genre. You know what I mean? Like, it's a movie, but this is horror instead of, pop. This is, what I mean? It's kind of like a different take on something like that, kind of, and I think that's great. I think it would be great to get them on to talk to you, because I think that a lot of those people, they need direction, and I think that it would be healthy for those communities to see some of their community members like talking to you about it in a situation that's not necessarily an ARG, like, so that they help them detach, help them, like, see the fiction from the real life, like, so some of them are a little lost in it, and just a gentle reminder that seeing the human side of each other, just a little bit of grounding. So I think it'd be great if you could get like any of those members to come on and talk to you a little bit, because I think that it would kind of help bring them back to earth a little bit if they need it. His daughter was so annoyed. She's like, "Oh God, do we have to use the puppets, Dad?" Oh, it's a great movie. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. Like, giving me a platform to talk about some of this stuff, man. Like, I mean, I knew I wanted to talk about this stuff. I didn't know how bad I wanted to talk about it till I really got into it, I guess, but like I said, when I'm streaming, this stuff is always on my mind, but I try to maybe, I've created in my head, whether it's for better or worse, a responsibility to keep the entertainment the primary focus. I want people to be able. Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So it's hard, and it's not just that. It's like, I know a lot of people, like, if it gets too real and that's not what they're there for, they leave, you know. But then at the same time, there have been moments on my stream where I've gotten this real with my audience, and I mean, it's always really well received. It's just finding a way to get there, is tough. I try to keep the games a little bit more of the focus, and keep the chat a little lighthearted, but there's times where, we'll get into something deep, and I'll just see how much they love it. But it just has to get there organically. I try not to, push it, force it, when they're just trying to enjoy some Ghostwire Tokyo, or they want to see Metal Gear Solid or a Final Fantasy or something like that. So, but I think if I could figure out a way to work more real conversation like this into my streams without it being forced or feeling artificial, I think that my community would grow exponentially. I think it would grow a lot faster, but it's like a math formula that I'm trying to get the answer right, without forcing it. But yeah, man, I appreciate this so much. And like I said, some of the clips, I'm sure when you're going through and editing, don't feel rushed, because none of this is time sensitive that I talked about. Hey, well, this was hey, man, I'm honored you let me be a part of it. Thank you so much, man. I'm really looking forward to I'm probably going to put out a tweet about it, and on my next stream I'm going to talk about that we had the interview. All of my years of being a professional wrestler, and protecting the business, and professional wrestlers, we all have these characters we play, and we have to conduct ourselves. Yeah, so it's like I understand, like, I think I have an above average understanding of like how to market something sometimes to try to increase curiosity, not to reveal anything. It's a dangerous game, bro. So
Rex, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and to learn about your perspective on this story. And we are so grateful for the opportunity to share this time together. Thank you kindly for taking the time to help us better understand this modern-day internet mystery.
you as well. Thank you again so much, and we'll do it again sometime. Dude, I am so sorry. I went so far off the rails with that. Holy shit.